Harumph. Hello, everyone. How's your fucking day is it today? Monday? Yes, it's Monday. Happy Monday. I have long lost track of the days, the weeks, the months, and even the years. So yeah, I thought I would do some news today because once again I'm not that out of date. I did pay some attention over the weekend, and it looks like we've got absolute definite life on Venus, maybe some hints, um, but exciting. Uh, and even if it's not actual life, which I, I suspect probably not, um, but even if it's not, it's potentially quite exciting because it would indicate some weird unknown chemistry going on Venus. So, excuse me. Um, Phosphine, uh, yeah, it is produced by bacteria. I'm not enough of an organic chemist to say with any confidence whether there's likely other sources. These experts seem to think that there isn't. I would tend to uh, not necessarily take them at their word, but take their claims seriously. Um, so, what is it after the discovery of phosphine could push NASA and other space agencies to take a closer look at Venus. That would be cool. Because Venus is, I think it gets overlooked a lot, but it's actually potentially quite a habitable planet. I know rivers of molten lead and sulfuric acid rain doesn't sound very habitable, but that's all below the cloud layer. Um, Up in the upper clouds, it's about the same like atmospheric pressure and temperature as here on Earth. So if you use like big heliostats, huge balloons, just floating in the upper atmosphere, then you could go outside with just like a respirator on. I mean, you probably want something covering your skin because it's still, not the nicest of atmospheres, but potentially rather habitable. Though if there were life on Venus, maybe we'd want to avoid inhabiting it because that could damage the life. Indeed, that's a serious concern, being a serious concern of various, Mars rovers and even some of the early lunar expeditions. Although obviously there's probably not any life on the moon. Could maybe be some on Mars. Uh, and if there is life on Venus, it's probably a decent bet that it's in the upper atmosphere. Though, of course, it could have evolved to be very weird and just extremely resistant to high temperatures. Though that seems a bit less likely, at least if it's anything like life here on Earth. The implications of finding life on Venus would, of course, be uh, potentially terrifying, potentially wonderful. Just some degree it depends on whether it were like DNA, RNA based life, which would indicate some form of panspermia, i.e., life being seeded on lots of different planets having originated somewhere else. Or it might be evolved completely separately. And if it is evolved completely separately, that is rather concerning because it indicates that if there is a great filter, we've talked about this on the show previously with Andy Sandberg. The great filter is the idea that we don't see a lot of alien civilizations talking to us. So where are they? The Drake equation and the Fermi paradox. Well, if we expect X number of planets to give rise to X number of civilizations and be able to see X number of radio waves coming out, the fact that we can't see them indicates there's probably something reducing the number of civilizations developing somewhere along the line between uh, uh, life existing and um, developing into a civilization that can send out radio waves or similar communication. And if life has evolved or has arisen independently in many places, that suggests that the Great Filter is later on in the development of an intelligent civilization, i.e., it's not the case that it's just really rare that life pops up anyway, but it's the case that perhaps advanced civilizations tend to destroy themselves. And I mean, it is looking the way humanity's going. It's looking that maybe that's the case. Hopefully, it's not. At least in our case. Hopefully, we're able to get over this current, troublesome period of our species' adolescence. But if life is found on Mercury, Venus, and it's not DNA or RNA based, then that would suggest that life develops many times and that the Great Filter is ahead of us. So, I kind of hope that we don't find any, and if we do, it's all DNA, RNA based. But if we do, it'll be interesting and would maybe give us an extra reason to, be worried about the possibility of destroying ourselves. Not that we need more of a reason, really, but um, it's nice seeing interesting science news break the headlines rather than. Although we've been getting that with the whole Neuralink thing as well. That's been a pleasant story, even though the Twitter takes on Neuralink are just sometimes really painful to read because on the one hand, some of them are just like completely wrong, just fundamentally misunderstanding what like neurological implants are doing, or just completely unaware of like how they exist at the moment or anything like that. Whereas some of them are like genuine concerns, just phrased in a really like hyperbolic or sensationalist or just kind of flawed manner. Um, and I kind of want to dive into each of these conversations and go, no, you have fundamentally misunderstood something, or like you've got a reasonable point here, but you're misdirecting it. Like, okay, so I got tagged in, and I'm not sure what's going on with the. Uh, I will reply to this, and please don't like go. I mean, there's only a few of you watching, so but don't go badgering this person. They seem perfectly nice, and I don't really know them. But someone tagged me into this conversation. They've since deleted their account. A friend of mine. I don't know what's going on with them, but point is, so guy saying any implant in the brain should be outright banned in all circumstances without exception, and in response to someone questioning him, uh, I think that in its current form it's just very weird and gross to not completely have control of what happens in your head. Further down the line, it could absolutely be used to suppress certain kinds of thought / have a kill switch active for most of humanity. And like these are concerns that I've had, and these are concerns that I've written about before. Not so much the banned without exception thing, because there are currently many tens of thousands of people worldwide who have some form of brain implant, and a lot of them are experiencing a substantially better quality of life thanks to it. Um, People with Parkinson's, dystonia, of course, people with deafness in having cochlear implants. I mean, technically that's a peripheral nerve implant, but it's basically a brain implant. Um, People with experimental like visual systems. Oh, hello, Selnaris. Thank you. Oh, sorry, Selnarius. Thank you very much for following. Um, but the point both about it being weird to have something in your head that we don't have control over, and the kill switch point are both things that like are genuine concerns. And really, my problem is the genuine concerns. I'm not saying we should be worried about Elon Musk installing kill switches in the near future, but these are things that we should think seriously about. And in the former case, like I've collaborated on philosophical papers about exactly how weird it is to have something in your head that potentially takes away from your agency, your sense of authenticity. But how in some cases it may also be weirder not to have that thing. Um, and it's a really, really complex issue. Similarly, the kill switch idea, it's very speculative, but the possibility that some corporation or government or whoever or just random hacker would be able to get access to billions of people's brains at once and alter the contents of their brains is deeply, deeply worrying, and one that even if I think is a fairly low probability of happening, the sheer impact of it means that overall the risk is something worth considering. Um, but my fundamental problem with this isn't like Labour Theo here making a reasonable, if somewhat naive, point about neurological implants. Again, I say that like without criticising because Labour Theo presumably doesn't have multiple degrees in neuroscience. It's understandable that he's not going to know all the details about a niche area of neurological implants. Um, but it's frustrating because Twitter only lets me write fucking 280 characters or whatever, and I can't have these discussions on Twitter. I just find Twitter so fucking frustrating. I've been using it more recently, and anytime someone says something I disagree with, like I'm perfectly happy to, get into a debate, but I need more than a little block to just say, uh, uh, yeah, that is an excellent point as well. One that if I were going more into depth into it, I would have absolutely brought up. Uh, and it's something that um, to not completely have control over what happens in your head. It's one of the reasons why I think we shouldn't be so quick to throw out neurological implants is the fact that a lot of people don't have control over what goes on in their heads, and it's the problem of a lot of neurological and mental illness is precisely that. There's something going on in your head that we have no control over. And a point I make in, oh God, I've forgotten the title of the paper, but uh, this paper, here we go, with along with Dr. Jonathan Pugh, who's supervisor of mine, and Tipu Aziz, Julius Avalescu, very distinguished professors, and Anders Sandberg, friend of the podcast show, whatever. Um, this is one of my favourite papers I've written. Um, so we specifically talk about the fact that you're kind of balancing that control when you're dealing with neurological implants, because someone with I think we use anorexia nervosa as an example. You can have deep brain stimulation to treat people with anorexia, and while the data is still being formed, tentatively it's a very encouraging treatment. Um, and the problem, of course, with one of the problems with anorexia nervosa is that they don't feel like they have adequate control over, or indeed they don't have adequate control over their self-perception and ability to eat. And when we're talking about exerting control over a patient's brain, we've got to realize that the pathological state is also vying for control. And it's often preferable, we argue, to have a doctor exerting. Damn it, I thought out of boobs. Um, yeah, I mean, last username, you're absolutely correct in that sense as well. That what goes on in our heads is both the sense of the meat, the stuff that's doing the thinking, or both the product of the meat that's doing the thinking, and of our external environment, what people are saying to us, what we're reading, all of these things. And I think there's certainly, and this is a parallel I try to draw in some of my work, there's certainly a very legitimate concern about having control over one's own thoughts and not giving that out to a third party. And there certainly are unique challenges posed by neuromodulation and Neuralink and deep brain stimulation and so forth to our sense of like personal identity and personal control over our own thoughts. But it's certainly not unique in being able to exert influence. And I think some of the some of the debate around like Neuralink recently gets very confused between like the kind of influence that say corporations or whatever like boogeyman we want to use have over us. I say that not to completely dismiss the concerns of surrounding these organizations, but whatever agency we're thinking is exerting like nefarious control, they're probably not going to be doing it using neurological implants in the next like 5, 10, even 20 years. Uh, it's a possibility in the future, and something that like I think we should have at least a handful of researchers working on. If anybody wants to fund my grants or anything, feel free. But it's not compared to like the problem of fake news, the problem of deep fakes. I mean, even deep fakes are kind of overhyped for their like immediate risk when just basic video editing and photo editing software allows you to get a lot of the way there. But deepfake's going to be a major concern to our kind of epistemic integrity than neuromodulation is. And it's fortunately the fact that we do have years and years until uh, Neuralink is actually like a consumer product that anyone can get in their head for non-medical reasons. Um, is a good thing. It means that we have time to have a serious think about it and serious discuss and not fly off the handle. Um, and I hope that the fallout of the Neuralink presentation is going to be some, the like paranoia will drop off a bit and we can have a serious public discussion. Um, Indeed, that's like what I was trying to raise with my with my 2016 paper and this one. Um, but yeah, so no uh, shade on Theo here. He's bringing up some perfectly like reasonable points, but I think they're points that we need to um, like consider carefully and at leisure. Um, I assume that no one really has control over what happens to their head. It's not like you choose how your thought processes work. You can always change it somewhat, but that choice will be the result of your current previous thought process, which you didn't control. Well, I mean, that gets into the whole free will debate, really, which, don't get me wrong, is very interesting. Well, I often think it comes down to kind of definitional issues. So, like in this case, you know, what do we mean by control? Um, and I think whether or not I have control over what goes in my head is very much dependent on how we define control. Um, but certainly in the sense that uh, one's thought processes, if we accept determinism to some degree, which I largely do, um, then yeah, absolutely, your current mental state is necessarily the product of your previous mental states combined with your environment. And if you didn't have control over your previous mental states, and you certainly don't have full control over your environment, then we can't reasonably say that you have a large amount of control, at least, over what happens in your head. Um, and that doesn't mean, I think, that uh, losing what control we do have is something that we should, be cavalier about by any means. The fact that we seem to have, or at least the fact that the kind of traditional conception of free will that doesn't necessarily bear out super convincingly, and arguably, and the fact that a lot of our decision making is very verifiably, like definitively based on factors beyond our control, doesn't mean that we should readily surrender what control we do have. But it does mean, I think, that we should try to get into perspective what losing some of that control means, and whether we had any of the control, whether we had all of the control we think we did in the first place. Um, but yeah, it's the takeaway though is that Twitter is a frustrating hell site where you can't have a proper conversation. But it is entertaining for dunking. Uh, Indeed, and yeah, we also shouldn't dismiss the possibility for gaining back control, or indeed gaining control that we never had. Um, the prospect that Thea raises, and I realise I'm kind of debating someone who has no opportunity to respond, so I will try to post on Twitter and at least link him this clip or something. Um, but uh, the fact that we don't completely have control could be a good reason for us to want to get a neurological implant. You know, if like I currently this whole like last month I've been feeling really shitty. I suffer from depression, and if I had a neurological implant, you know, a little coin-shaped thing that sat flush with my skull and sent a few thousand iridium wires or whatever into my cortex and was able to stimulate it and make me feel adequate. You know, remove the burden of anhedonia, make me feel a bit cheerful, you know, make me interested in things that I like to be interested in. Then I would say that that's increasing my control. It's increasing my ability to make free decisions. Um, it's giving me, you know, in a very literal sense, direct control via my smartphone over some of the neurons in my brain, in a way that we simply don't have currently. At the moment, various parts of my body, my portion of my brain, my lateral habenula, and whatever other regions are involved in depression. There's a lot of regions involved in depression, and we don't really understand it all. Neon Golden can tell you more about that. She's the expert here. Um, you know, my pancreas doesn't work properly, uh, but at least in the case of the pancreas, I have a little monitor that gives me more control, that enables me to, even if it doesn't directly give me, you know, an insulin injection on the fly sort of thing, enables me to graph it out on my phone and understand it better and respond to that information. And having the same kind of access to neurological data, to the neural correlates of various emotional states, then that meaningfully gives us more control over our brains. And if only I have access to to the app that controls it, then only I have more control over it. Of course, the problem comes, as I think I pointed out during the Neuralink demo, when it's not just you having, or well, there are potentially problems with just you having control. There are potentially problems with, there are problems everywhere. Um, but bigger, you know, like societal problems, I think, come with corporations or governments or you know, potentially just individual doctors who mean well but act stupidly, giving them control over one's one's brain, even in direct ways, is potentially worrying. Um, and I think, though, at least in the nearer future, I'm a bit more concerned about like mistakes and kind of low grade like malware, as opposed to the sort of conspiratorial, you know, evil person in the government decides to turn everyone's brain implants to kill sort of scenario, like, which is done rather well in, spoilers, Deus Ex Human Revolution. If you haven't played that, I won't go into more detail because it's a very good game, well worth playing. Not quite, not quite as good as the original Deus Ex, but still very, very good. And it goes through a similar scenario that's worth worth seeing. But the more, if we look at something like hospital infrastructure, healthcare infrastructure generally, like the uh, IT based infrastructure at the moment, it's not so much the like government surveillance that's the problem, though in places that is. It's more just the fact that it's all terribly insecure, and hackers will get control of hospital servers, shut them off, lock them, and engage in ransom operations, which, or even just like infect them with random malware unintentionally. There have been surveys done of like drug infusion pumps and all kinds of other medical devices that are critical to patient safety, not necessarily implanted, but that if you just leave them on an open network, which a lot of hospital networks bafflingly are, uh, within like a couple of hours, they almost always get some malware on them. And usually not even malware specifically designed for that device, but there's a lot of malware that'll just go on any kind of embedded system running on vaguely the same hardware. And obviously, because it's cheaper and easier, uh, and I don't want to say that like to be derogatory to the companies who make these things. It's just they want to be economical. It's cheaper and easier to use off-the-shelf components and underlying systems, so they end up quite vulnerable, and nobody secures them properly. And it's not like there's any evil person trying. Bloody headphones. It's not like there's any one evil person trying to, screw everyone over. Even the malware makers probably aren't deliberately trying to, infect all hospital devices. But nonetheless, devices fuck up, sometimes give rise to serious errors, and can occasionally compromise patient safety. Um, in the same way, neurological implant security probably isn't going to lead to evil dictators controlling everyone's brains, but there's still a concern of devices fucking up and people having a very bad time just because they got some malware on their smartphone that happens to have both the app that controls their brain and the latest version of whatever mobile game comes preloaded with a buttload of spyware, and the malware interacts badly and the app stops working, and so does their brain. Um, and that's the weird world we're going to be living in soon. Uh, so I got on this from Life on Venus. Uh, let's go back and have a little bit more look at the news. Oh Jesus. Uh, Trump denies climate change in exchange with California official. Uh, this is okay. So it's it's certainly true that you can't say that like any individual extreme weather event is definitively the fault of climate change, because any weather event is the result of multitudinous factors. What you can say is that any individual event is made substantially more likely by climate change, and that this specific, burning of California very probably like largely the result of climate change. Can't say for definite because induction doesn't like work like that, but very probably. Let's see. Oh, I need to switch my. I never remember to switch the bloody audio inputs or outputs even. Let me just. There we go. Right.
Make our summers warmer, but also our winters warmer as well. So I think one area of mutual agreement and priority is vegetation management. But I think we want to work with you to really recognize the changing climate and what it means to our forests, and actually work together with that science. That science is going to be key, because if we ignore that science and sort of put our head in the sand and think it's all about vegetation management, we're not going to succeed together protecting Californians.
Okay, it'll start getting cooler. You just watch.
I wish science agreed with you.
Hey, well, I don't think science knows actually. Tom, please.
Oh, it's it's just so vexing that anyone pays attention to the bullshit that he says. I like the biggest state in his country, or the country that he's supposed to be leading, is largely on fire. Uh, and I think like Oregon's pretty badly on fire as well. And just completely, the officials literally saying we shouldn't stick our head in the sand, and he's just like slop right into the sand. We'll get cooler. It's fine. It's fine. He's going to end up on a raft in the middle of the Pacific, as I exaggerate. Obviously, ocean levels aren't going to get that high, but maybe he'll end up on a raft in the middle of the Pacific anyway, because people just get tired of him and tell him to fuck off. That'd be nice. But yeah, so Biden calls Trump a climate arsonist. That seems fair. And it's such a difficult issue to communicate because you get one like snap of cold weather and the denialist can say, "Oh no, look, it's cold. Where's your global warming now?" And I I I mean, what's even the acceptance in the US these days? Um, 'cause I think it's like substantial majority now. Yeah, there we go. Uh, so this is another one of these Republican death cult things where they're not even like pandering to a stupid electorate or anything. Uh, it's just that I suppose they're pandering to their base at least. Um, so 67% of Americans think the federal government is doing too little to reduce the effects of global climate change, according to Pew, and Pew are generally, not bad. Um, but of Democrats and lean Democrats, it's 90% and it's 39% of Republicans and lean Republicans. um, at least it's a majority of millennial and younger Republicans. So, hopefully uh, the dying out of older voters will be faster than the dying out of everyone else. Um, but yeah, it's deeply concerning to me. Not so much because I'm specifically worried about climate change, though I am reasonably, um, but because it's a harbinger of the debates that we're going to have over other existential risks. And like, I can see there being a reasonable debate when it comes to nuclear weapons, because while I think we should radically scale back the arsenals, and that particularly the US and Russia should, I can see arguments for deterrence. Like, deterrence is a compelling idea. I think there's some truth to it, and it's not like we can put it back in the bag. We can't just get rid of the knowledge of how to make nukes. Obviously, we can make it a bit more difficult, but the fundamental idea of taking fissile material, unstable, very heavy elements, and compressing them is pretty straightforward. Oh, hey Crockett, how's it going? Good to see you. Um, I'm just talking about climate change and existential risk and whatnot. Back onto the classics. Um, so yeah, with nuclear weapons, I can at least see some arguments. Um, but when it comes to the emerging problems, uh, uh, wait, fission. Um, no, in the case of a fission weapon, you take unstable heavy elements, compress them until they reach supercriticality, and then the some of them start breaking apart, giving off neutrons. Those neutrons hit on into uh, more of the atoms, causing a chain reaction. But compression is definitely necessary or it's the main way that fission bombs are done. Like uh, the what was it? Fat Man was the implosion type, and Little Boy was the gun type. So like Fat Man took a bunch of plutonium, very heavy, unstable, um, and yeah. Um, no, I anyway, we're going to get off track. I'm pretty sure I'm not. Compression is used in. I mean, compression is used in both because you need both fission and fusion require very high temperatures. But yeah, and it, both fission and fusion are used in hydrogen bombs. But yeah, with a hydrogen bomb, you typically have like fission, fusion, fission. Sorry if I said it incorrectly first time. I may well have. But yeah. Anyway, point is that it's a relatively simple process that we can replicate. There's no putting it back in the bag. Um, but so there's a reasonable debate to be had over nukes. But when it comes to climate change, the science is pretty clear. The things that we need to do, the actual policies that we need to start implementing are pretty clear. Obviously, there's a lot of debate to be had around the edges, but just generally, emit less carbon and CO2 equivalent. Um, find ways of replacing current carbon intensive technologies, these sort of things. Like, this is pretty obvious, straightforward stuff. And the debate should much more be on exactly how can we do this, and what kind of policy levers are going to have the most effect for the least cost, rather than still debating whether the sky is blue practically. And this is concerning in the case of climate change, which is a fairly impending risk. Like, at least the risk of it like wiping us all out is obviously like decades at least away, probably centuries. But the risk of it seriously harming millions of people is, I mean, it's kind of happening already, and it's certainly not more than like a decade or two away until we have like major global crises as a result of it. And if people aren't able to come together and collaborate for a pretty impending, pretty clear cut, and like relatively straightforward risk, I don't know what we're going to do about the complex issues of AI control and engineered uh, pandemic diseases, emerging biotechnology, emerging nanotechnology, all of these technological issues that potentially are going to be just as bad, if not worse, or hold, I think, a comparable amount of risk to climate change, if not more. I don't know how we're going to communicate that and how we're going to get people riled up and concerned and wanting change, or at least willing to stand out of the way and not fuck up efforts to mitigate risk. So, to some degree, I see climate change as a bit of a test for the challenges of the 21st century, and so far we're not doing great on that test. Um, Crockett, are you memeing? Please tell me you're memeing, because no, like the, uh, no, come on. Um, there are climate change would be happening regardless of the existence of capitalism. Abolishing capitalism isn't going to deal with it. Now, regulating certain aspects of it might be completely necessary. I'm on board there, but abolishing global capitalism won't get rid of the need for food production, for electricity, for so unless we're going to go like fully prim, we're still going to need to produce or to engage in carbon intensive industries, like I don't want to be like the Soviet Union is the only socialist example, but pick a socialist country, pick any country that's even like gone anywhere into lefty ideals, you'll see that they're not particularly great of they're particularly great at maintaining the environment, and were certainly contributing to greenhouse emissions. Now, they might contribute less on average because they have lower GDPs, because they're not very well developed, because they haven't embraced markets, but they still contribute in to a substantial degree, and often disproportionate to their GDP, because they're not able to develop cleaner, higher tech energy sources. Uh, so, like, if you want to say, industries are polluting and we should intervene more with industries to make sure they don't pollute, then yeah, sure. If you want to, I mean, even if we want to talk about, like, I don't know, repossessing assets of the oil and gas industry or something, it's not a policy lever I'd want to go to, but like, that's a reasonable thing to discuss. Um, Obviously, the oil and gas industry, while they are producing products for consumers who would be consuming regardless of the economic system, they are certainly, um, uh, as organisations, incentivized to fight against climate change as an idea and to perpetuate climate myths. So, like, if you wanted to talk about restrictions on lobbying or something, sure. But so what countries specifically I'm talking about? So the major industrialized countries that we could call socialists. So I'd guess Soviet Union, China, at least prior to the market reforms, because you can't really call it socialist anymore. Although the market reforms have, not it's still polluting. It would probably be polluting regardless of market reforms. Um, Venezuela, uh, like most of the other socialist countries I can think of, just don't have particularly meaningful economies. Um, like DPRK is pretty bad polluter. DPRK is actually a terrible polluter from what we know, which isn't very much, but their mining efforts are really poor. Um, I mean, the USSR has one of the worst ecological records ever. And okay, again, I don't want to like say that the USSR is just the using the word socialism in the sense of a transitory system between capitalism, communism, synonym to communism. I'm using it in the sense of a state-run left-wing economy. So, like, I mean, I'm just using it as a kind of antonym to capitalism here, because you're saying that capitalism is the biggest hurdle in the way of solving the global climate crisis. Um, Whereas I would say that there isn't like one clear biggest hurdle, or if you were going to like put it down to one like big reason, it would be like a crazier. Um, okay, uh, okay, sure. Um, yeah, so what system do you think would be substantially better at dealing with the climate crisis and is like vaguely okay, sorry. The end of my question was, and is vaguely feasible to implement before we all die as a result of global warming? Anarcho-communism isn't going to happen like anywhere on any major scale in the next 50 years. Um, like, you might be able to set up a commune here and there, and I absolutely support you. If you like, I'm fully on board with people experimenting with new society types and like new living structures and so forth. That's all cool by me. Um, but like, the only way that anarcho-communism could plausibly deal with the climate crisis, uh, to my mind, is if there somehow managed to be a like anarcho-communist revolution that just stopped everyone consuming, and uh, it might have like worked on a very small scale. Can you point to any nation state with more than 1 million people that has been anarcho-communist for more than a decade without like huge okay, state, any grouping, sure, okay, nation, any commune, any organization with more than or community um, of more than 1 million people, or more than 100,000, um, that society, sure, um, that existed for like any meaningful amount of time without just collapsing or giving way to like regional warlord or anything like that. Um, okay, I am happy to look because, like I say, I'm all on board with people trying out these kind of. Um, okay, so let's look by um, these. Okay, where's anarcho-communism or anarcho-socialism? Syndicalism, we'll lump that in. Like, yeah, all of these are neighborhood, seaport. Like, is this? Wait, this wasn't anarcho-communist for a long time, was it? Uh, politics. Okay. Okay, so none of these seem to have like been primarily run in an anarchist manner, uh, involving like large numbers of people. Like a few thousand, cool. And I like fully supportive of that. If you want to like set up a commune with a few thousand people and like have a fun time, that's all good. Like I'm fine with that. But we're not actually going to be able to run like large societies using this system. I don't see how you can deal with any of the like major functions of uh, Rojava isn't fully communist. Which one's Rojava? Uh, let's see. Oh, I mean, this is a pretty bad war zone. I'm not sure. Obviously, can't blame that just on. Uh, uh, Also, like semi-direct democracy. That doesn't sound. I don't know. I need to look into this more. Um, but if this is a functioning society, great. What's their GDP? Like, what's their quality of life like? Um, these are the sort of things I'm interested in, and if they are, uh, I mean, generally, I'd support them not being like invaded militarily, though. Uh, I'm going to talk about the internal market bill. What's the internal market bill? I'm not familiar with that. Uh, okay, I'm going to have to read this off stream. Um, oh, which reminds me, I have not yet gotten through Conquest of Bread. I did start it, but haven't. Uh, I didn't really get into it. But I will have another shot at it. Um, uh, I thought you were British. I am British. I just don't pay very much attention to British politics. I'm always some time behind. I pay more attention to US politics, though at the moment I've not been um, paying a lot of attention to many things. Um, but going back to the anarcho-communism thing, so my Um, oh right, okay. I don't know. The whole Brexit negotiation seemed to be going so poorly, and they just give me uh, just, I just end up feeling like it's all crap, which isn't exactly the most uh, insightful um, input. So sorry, going back to the Ancon thing. So yeah, this is part of the problem I think, Crockett, is that these societies keep on getting invaded and then can't really do much because they don't have like a functional central government to provide national defense, and don't have like diplomatic staffs in order to access the EU emergency fund. That's a bit rich. Um, yeah, so they don't have diplomatic staff to maintain like international relations. Um, and like I say, I need to look into this specific state more. But I think even if one can produce a nice society temporarily with a, generally with an anarchic system, um, I mean that's fair. Uh, Imperial Japan did stomp over a lot of small countries. Uh, yeah, mm. But still, um, generally, I think you would have to concede that anarcho-communist societies' ability to defend against external threats is likely to be substantially compromised by the fact that it doesn't have any kind of centralized military. Excuse me. Um, I mean, if you, I wouldn't use the Viet Minh as an example there because they got a lot of support from external sources. It's not like the Viet Minh were producing their own weaponry. Um, Obviously, the South Vietnam wasn't either. Um, though, like, I'm certainly not using South Vietnam as an example of anything I would want to strive for. It was a very unpleasant autocracy, um, and the US supporting it was quite a squalid episode. Um, though, I support the US supporting South Korea, and the autocracy of South Korea was um, probably worse. I think. I'm not an expert. Um, but I think the case for um, supporting them against communist aggression was stronger. Anyway, getting off topic. Not that there really is a topic. Um, but yeah, I'll have to look into this a bit more because I do have a soft spot for um, like communes and for uh, alternative communities. I was quite into the idea of seasteading in my teens, and I do like the Freetown Christiana, little kind of enclaves like that. And generally, I think like if a bunch of anarchists manage to get hold of a neighborhood and it doesn't cause too many problems, probably just best to like leave them to it, and they can have their little area. Um, uh, Yeah, once the revolution starts, anarchist societies will help each other and provide weapons when they get attacked too. Yeah, but anarchist societies can't make any good weapons. Like, uh, well, maybe once, 3D printing gets off and democratization of firepower becomes available, but currently, like, anarchist societies don't have like, I'm reasonably confident saying no anarchist society has ever had the industrial base necessary to um, compete with like peers that do have some form of military-industrial complex. Um, I'm not necessarily saying that makes them morally worse by any means. I think it'd be nice if we could do away with the military-industrial complex, but it does make it hard to uh, compete with states or societies or whatever, um, uh, that is it not last year's name? Well, okay. Anarcho-communist societies, uh, anarcho-capitalist societies would probably still. I don't know. Even ANCAP societies, you can still have the market for like stealth bombers and cruise missiles and so forth. Even memeing aside about recreational nukes and everything, um, uh, no, come on, anarcho-capitalists are real anarchists. You might disagree with them, but disagree with them because of the capitalist thing. They genuinely believe in no state. Um, yeah, they are. Yeah, they are. It's anarchism is a very broad term. Um, Anarchism is no unjust hierarchies, I believe, is the like pithy way of putting it. And anarcho-capitalists would, I would presume, argue that the hierarchies involved in private uh, trade are not unjust. Um, that's at least my understanding of it from where in my dark days as an anarcho-capitalist. Um, okay, no involuntary coercive. Okay, well, I've heard it stated as no unjust ones, but anarcho-capitalists would argue that free trading, my exchanging money or services for your money or services, is not involuntary or coercive, and any coercive aspects to it are induced by nature rather than. Okay, I'm not going to argue this with you because I don't actually believe this anymore. I think you're right that there is. Eh, no, I think you're strictly wrong in that it is voluntary, but I think that there should be more to the like organisation of labour than just whether or not it's literally a free decision. Um, but I'm my point is I think if you I your disagreement seems to be over uh, whether or not that's voluntary, which like doesn't seem to invalidate whether or not an anarcho-capitalist is an anarchist. Um, you might think they're a bad anarchist. Uh, you might think that they're doing it shittily, but like they're still an anarchist. They're still arguing against all forms of hierarchy that they believe to be involuntary or coercive. Um, but anyway, uh, I'm sure Last Username could debate you more coherently about this. Um, but yeah, uh, I mean, Rothbard didn't really. Anyway, I'm not an ANCAP uh, anymore, at least. Even when I was like more. I was sort of agorist a little bit. I was on that kind of as just individualist anarchist generally, Um, but anyway, you two can have it out between you. Um, oh, I might I might continue chatting while I play a bit of War Thunder, because I'm in the mood for playing a bit of that. I can continue with the debates while I'm blowing up tanks and shit. Um, Argument from etymology isn't very convincing. Uh, I mean, really, this seems to come down to the whole like it seems to come down to the same thing as you get on the left with like this person isn't left because they're doing bad things, as if left equals good. Same with anarchism doesn't equal good. I think there are lots of systems, some of which one can these days I think all of which are pretty limited, but um, uh, many of which have good aspects, many of which have terrible aspects, and the label anarchism I don't think should be the kind of morally relevant, normative label. Although that's mainly just me getting grumpy at everyone being like, "Oh, you're not a lefty because you're saying things I disagree with." Like, lots of people on the left have stupid ideas. Anyway, um, I say this now, apparently finding myself on the left officially, according to the hippy dippy um, podcast recruitment thing I was on the other week. That was fun. I should try to do more of that. I've just been so tired and useless recently. Blech. Anyway, let's blow up some tanks or whatnot. And so I started playing this fairly recently, and I mainly got it for the warships, and I did try World of Warships as well, um, uh, which was um, all right, a little bit too arcadey. Um, what do you think of the term liberal anarchy and anarcho-capitalism? Um, yeah, I think I used to be more of a like strictly sort of liberal anarchist than anarcho-capitalist. What started me off thinking of myself as an anarchist rather than just like a minarchist was The Moon is a Harsh Mistress by Robert Heinlein. Yes, I was a teenage Heinlein fan. How could you tell? Um, and yeah, one of the characters in there describes them as oh fuck off, as a rational anarchist, like sort of accepting only the authority over him that can be reasonably sustained. And it all seemed quite attractive. And then I read a bit of Friedman and a bit of Nozick, and that all seemed quite sensible. Um, but yeah, I'm still of the opinion that like have you just okay, we just crashed, just fucked off. All right. Um, let's try that again. Uh, I'm of the opinion that like ideally in the kind of most wonderful society I can imagine, there would be you know, no involuntary hierarchies. I would envision a world without any state, any you know, uh, big organisations that have lots of power over you. I think that idealistically anarchism is wonderful. Um, the problem is I don't see it as particularly feasible on a large scale for the immediately foreseeable future. Now, long term, could we see a world like that of Ian M. Banks' culture novels, where there's no real government and the administration is done by computers, artificial intelligences, but whether or not you listen to them is entirely your choice, and they're all friendly and benign and watch over us with loving grace and whatnot. Uh, yeah, I think that's pretty much the ideal society, and I'm not sure whether one calls that ANCAP or what. Right, I clicked exit instead of Steam login. Okay, that would. I'm already live. Thank you. Um, whether that's market anarchist because you can still trade with people, whether that's fuck fully automated luxury gay space communism. You want fully automated luxury gay space anarchy. Um, because gay space communism is basically Star Trek, and Star Trek is not as good as culture. Culture novels I would rather live in than the Star Trek world. Um, like Star Trek's fine, don't get me wrong, it's cool, but they've still got the weird like militaristic. Uh, the Federation isn't really a state as such, is it? It's more of a like diplomatic organization. I don't know the Star Trek lore super well, um, but I mean also like I mean really all like communist attempts seem to or attempts at communism seem to end up with a state like practically. Um, though we did just look at some examples that don't seem to have, so I will grant that they don't so much on the smaller scale necessarily. Big question is, should you prioritize moving towards anarchy when making political decisions today, or at least not moving away from it? I think that's a good question, and I I wouldn't prioritize either, um, but I do think it's worth having in the back of one's mind um, uh, that we don't want to like shut off futures from that possibility if we can avoid it. Um, so I would. There are many reasons, but one of the reasons why I wouldn't want to see a very very strong like world government that isn't at least somewhat federalized or devolved power um, would be because I think that would probably shut herself into a branching path of futures that is much less likely to contain any sort of like free association that we would see in anarchism. Um, so I think it's definitely something that like should figure into my political calculus a bit, but most of my political calculus is focused on um, like well is focused on kind of spreading like liberal ideas and the liberal international order and all of that good stuff with the instrumental goal of improving lives and reducing the risk of existential catastrophe. Um, so what am I doing here? Okay, I get stuff and things. Okay, I haven't played this game much. Um, what about major expansion of state responsibility? I'm tentatively okay with that, depending on um, the area. It is a bit pay to win, though it's not like too bad for it. You can still have a good time without it. Um, uh, I'm mainly doing it as just like, why are you asking me to, just research upgrade? Or at least it's like pay to win faster. That it doesn't seem to like cut much off that you can't get other ways. But um, yeah, mainly I just like want a nice, easy arcadey game, um, and I quite like tanks and ships and stuff. Um, sorry, Crockett was saying. State how I define the entity that has monopoly on the legitimate use of violence. Um, Federation definitely has monopoly on like the legitimate use of space violence. Uh, but I don't know about does it also control the administration of all the planets it like rules over? Again, not sure about Star Trek. My Star Trek hot take is that Star Trek is Poseidis propaganda because it's got an idealized like socialisty or an idealized left wing government of some sort. Crockett, you you decide what we want to label it, but it has some sort of like lefty government that's existing after a big global thermonuclear war, um, uh, and they were raised up in part by aliens. So that's just all Poseidist talking points right there. Um, yeah, so going back to last year's names, question your goal is expansion. Yeah, my caution about expanding the state is it's definitely often part of my thinking, and I would the main thing I would distinguish is like expanding the state size versus expanding its power. I think we should be much more cautious about the latter than the former. Um, like there are lots of programs, say like Social Security and generally like welfare entitlements are in terms of size, like in terms of percentage of budget or percentage of GDP or whatever, massive. They're often the largest source of outlay of a nation state. But in terms of actual power that they grant the state, it's not trivial. It is giving the state potentially coercive power over people later in life, and but it's also not nearly as great as a radical scaling up of police forces, which would cost a fraction of the amount, but would vastly increase the state's like control over everyday people. I wouldn't put it quite as flippant as the statement there, Crockett, but broadly speaking, there's a lot of difference in the quality of both the like bang for the buck and the sort of overall direction, whether it's like positive or negative, um, in some programs than others. So I would support expanding the state's role in certain programs. I'd say the marginal cop probably is Crockett. Certainly the marginal uh, like SWAT officer or a DEA agent. The marginal like FBI agent, I wouldn't be so sure. Um, and the marginal like homicide investigator, yeah, maybe not, but yeah, on average you can probably make a good case there. Um, yeah, also there is definitely a thermonuclear war in the 21st century in Star Trek lore. Where would a carbon tax fit into that spectrum? Um, like massive positive. Carbon tax is, and I'm not one of these like sort of social liberals or soc dems who are like super fetishizing like let's raise all the taxes, but we should really have a carbon tax. Um, you know, put the money back into either a like citizens dividend like fund towards like some kind of UBI or negative income tax thing, or um, just invest it in like green energy research. But yeah, a carbon tax would be really, really good. Um, and in before anyone says it's like pawning off the cost on the consumers, it's the consumers are ultimately the like cause for emissions. I'm not saying they're fully responsible because obviously there are decisions made by corporations and governments and so forth. But if it weren't for the consumers there wouldn't be the emissions. And whether or not you're taxing the corporations who are kind of initially making the emissions or the consumer, it ends up being paid by or being split by the consumer and the producer anyway. Um, oh right, sorry, I thought you were taking us on a tangent. In terms of grants of government power, I think carbon taxes are like one of the examples, a good example actually. Thank you for bringing it up, of a way in which the government would be like bigger than it is currently, but not substantially more powerful compared to if we started implementing like carbon price controls. That would probably require a comparable level of administrative overhead, maybe probably be a bit bigger in about the same amount, but would involve much more power and much more control over people, and would do so in a way that's bad. Um, I, just to clarify, I don't necessarily think that all control is always bad. I think there are circumstances, like I think um, giving the government the power over people to stop them getting hold of fissile material is probably a good thing. I think I probably shouldn't be able to have any, uranium-235, or I shouldn't be able to have any uranium that's highly enriched to 235. I should be able to have, for example, my uranium glass here, which looks more invisible thanks to my green screen. This has a small amount of U-235 in it, but, not much. I'd be hard-pressed to make a nuke out of that. But preventing people from obtaining like dangerous quantities of it, yeah, probably a good thing. And that is power over people. It is restricting people's freedoms. What percentage of that glass is uranium? Probably like 1 or 2%, and almost all of the uranium in that glass will be 238, which is the main isotope. Where has my... I have a little black light around somewhere that I could show you it fluorescing, because it's quite pretty when it fluoresces, but I can't seem to find it. Oh well. But yeah, very small percentage, and uranium isn't very radioactive when it's just sitting around, unless you get a large amount of it and it starts going critical, which you don't want so much. Let's go to battle and do some tank shooties. Yeah, it's perfectly safe to drink out of. Well, I probably wouldn't want to keep like keep spirits in a decanter of it and then drink large amounts of it. Not so much because of concerns about radioactivity, but just heavy metal poisoning. It's the same reason why I wouldn't keep spirits in a glass decanter, a lead crystal decanter for long periods of time. But that's not because it's uranium. It's just because it contains some heavy metal. But apart from that, yeah, it's perfectly safe to drink out of. You know. Let me just check my sugars. I'm trending down a little bit. I'll just, while I'm waiting for this start, I'll just get myself a little bit more Coke out of my fancy double-walled glass here. Keeps my ice nice and cold, which is pleasant, because I do love my ice. Oh, right, bit of Coke. Just gotta keep my blood sugar up so I don't pass out. It's always pleasant when I don't go unconscious. Except for sleep. Sleep can be nice. Right. Same thing applies to metal ice cubes. No, they are usually they're usually coated in like paraline or something, so they're fine, and they'll be made out of like steel or aluminium, I think sometimes. Neither of which, well, you don't want to be like eating large amounts of iron or aluminium, but like small amounts fine. Right, ooh, nearly crashing into this chap. Okay, I think it's mostly bots on this. I'm assuming like Flynn and Valerie are bots. Oops, sorry, crashing into you again. Crashing into me. Be so easy to do a post-all stream bingo, ice nukes, defining something, showing something random headphones fail. Yeah, yeah. Right. I'm slip sliding around in my little... Ooh, throw a ball. Slow me down a little bit, but not much. Right, I'm gonna go... I was about to say take point A, but there is only point A. Ooh. wasn't very elegant. Also, don't reverse very fast in this thing. I've only got the, like, basic tanks, so they're all, like, shitty interwar ones, I think. Or, like, start of World War II. Oh yeah, that's just the exhaust. Though, my tank is pretty crappy, so it could easily be damaged already. But it is fairly nippy, at least. I'll give it that, and it can do these cool little power slides that I quite like. Which is fancy. And see the little dot in the, or little crosshair in the center of my screen is where my, or like jittering around is where the gun's actually aiming. And it can, not very well, it seems. Can crush a car though, which is pretty cool. So yeah, the little like cross is where the gun's actually pointing, and then the circle is like where I'm moving it to. Ooh, we got a, yeah, hit, and ooh, I think just got a track. Ooh, just over my head. Reload. Shoot past you, mate. There we go. Ooh, there's more of them. There's more of them. Just go for like hyper maneuverable tanks. Ooh, no, just missed him. I think that was a hit on me, but not a very effective one. They're getting a few near me, but nothing particularly. I mean, we're both kind of blasting away at each other fairly ineffectually. He's pushing. Ah, shit. That would have been nice if it were a more effective strike. Oh, oh, critical, critical. Come on, you fucker. Oh, I think it's dead. Okay, it's dead. Cool. Right, you. Which one are you? One of you hostile? Oh no, the hostile one's over there. The names were confusing me. Where are you, you wee fucker? Oh, can't quite get a bead on it. There we go. Yeah. Oh, good hit. If this game had friendly fire, I'm not actually sure. I'm not sure if it does on this mode, because this is the, like, arcadey mode. Woohoo. I try to avoid shooting my friends. Though, I don't know, because I have seen, at least on the boat game, let's see. No, oh you can't, just can't click. Fair enough. Seems to do a, like, control. Yeah, there we go. Poor chap inside the turret. Okay, let's, well, they seem to have that under control. Let's head over here, maybe. See what's what. Yeah, apparently I can't just can't click over the turret. Right, I've only got the one weapon. Oh, dropping bombs everywhere. I've just got my little 4-pounder or whatever it is gun. But we seem to be doing alright. The shooting hits again. I don't know. I don't know whether it is. It's certainly got quite a good look both ways before I cross the street. It's certainly got quite good hitboxes. Oh, bugger. Why is my fucking turret wasn't turning properly? There we go. Okay, right. Let's see where Spicy Boy is. Oh, hello. He's up there. I see you. Yeah. Got a good hit. Tank sniping. Which Yeah, my tank's from a society actually, not a nation. Thank you very much. Um, no, this is American tanks. So I play. I say I play. I've like played a handful of games. Um, I'm doing American tanks and British ships. Um, Mainly because I like started off with the British ships and unlocked a couple, and then was like, oh, I've got all these other countries, but you only have one unlock tree per country, and I was like, well, I've started down this one anyway. Sorry, I've only played a handful of games on the tank mode. The ship mode I've played a fair bit more, although 20 hours isn't that much compared to some of the games I've been doing recently. Bloody Crusader Kings I've been hitting quite hard. Oh, if you have been following my Crusader Kings playthrough, I got with Castile, I got Hispania, created. I started creating an army of super soldiers with like hyper intelligence and strength and giants, because apparently you can breed like super knights, and that went quite well. And then I kind of got bored because I'd conquered all the worlds and I wept. And then I started again with Moravia, which went very poorly. And so now I'm kind of between CK3 games, hence my playing this. Let's improve the turret slewing rate because my turret is slewing quite poorly. Um, and then rate of fire. Oh, I get lots of unlocks. I don't know why I get this many unlocks, but okay, sure. Right, okay. So you can these golden eagle things. You can like that's the premium currency, and then they have silver lions for the other currency, and they have research points because they have to have like a dozen fucking currencies, and yeah, yeah, it is definitely a bit, it's very definitely a free to play game, um, which can be a little bit annoying, but it's fun arcade action, Um, I was tempted by World of Warships because they have the Twitch deals. If you're a streamer, you get like even like 5-10 viewer Andy like me, you get special um, bonus items and whatnot. Um, yeah, it's one of these things where uh, you're you can like pay to get some of the unlocks faster, but most of it is like not hugely consequential because you're kept within the same like bracket of ships or tanks. So if you're playing like an M3 or whatever from World War II, you're not going to find yourself up against like a modern Leopard 2 or whatever. They keep it within like a sort of range of like sizes and eras kind of thing. Um, so I think if you just end up like spending all the money and getting really fancy shit, you end up on servers playing against people with all the fancy shit. I think the point is some people are nerds for tanks and ships, and no, you can. I mean, you can get different ammo types. I'm not sure if there is premium specific ammo. That would be pretty silly. Um, but yeah, like I think part of the attraction is just like, yeah, lots of people are nerds for specific types of tanks and whatnot, and really want to play their like favorite one. Um, but you can certainly like pay for faster unlocks and everything, which is always a little bit crappy. But well, just gonna nestle in here and hope this provides me with a little bit of cover. Oh, we got a bad boy over there. I say, sir. Oh, knock you out of the fight, what? Yes, there you go. Fuck your machine gun. I say, sir, stay still. Oh, bugger. Well, I got one of theirs and they got one of me. Fair enough. Yeah, I personally like enjoy the gradual building up and adding things onto my ship and all that kind of stuff. Um, like I'm not super interested in shelling out a bunch of money and like getting all the upgrades immediately. It's something I always enjoy in games, is that like gradual uh, like build up of capability. Oh, that's a friendly, but just behind it is not. You enemy? No? Okay. Right, well everything is just kicking off, isn't it? Yeah, honestly, the free-to-play nature and the like monetization stuff did put me off for a while. Um, and it was just like I randomly saw it while wondering what to play, and yeah, I'm enjoying it. Like I wouldn't say I would like super highly recommend it, but like if you want, you know, something arcadey that lets you, you know, shoot some fun tanks and shit, yeah, it's pretty good. Where are you, you bastard? Okay, you're dead. Let's find a new target and get out of my buddy's way. What's down here? Yeah, I always enjoy that feeling of progress. I mean, obviously, it can be nefariously used to, you know, stick us in Skinner boxes, but when it's good, that feeling of progression and like putting together a team, I always enjoy. You've probably never played it, but SWAT 2, you may well have heard of SWAT 4 and or SWAT 3, but SWAT 2 was like a little. It's a bit risky. I need to back out of here. But like, oh, tactical shooter. Kind of like, I don't know, isometric version of early Rainbow Six. And there's not much to say about it, other than the fact that it gave you some really fun, like, team upgrades that I always loved. And I used to spend most of the thing just gradually upgrading my team and like training them and not actually using them a lot. Uh, so I'd end up with a crappy team throughout most of it until I gradually got to the later missions where I'd bring out the super emo team that I'd been like training up the whole game and just wipe the floor with them. No, it's always fucking annoying when the devs change up the balance of something you've been really enjoying. Especially if it's like suddenly pay to win shittiness. Because often, yeah, it just completely ruins the balance, and especially when like you've been, yeah, that was a good hit. Especially when you've been, you know, playing for ages and like getting the upgrades without the pay to win thing. That's just, yeah, shitty. Oh yeah, Magic the Gathering is a notorious money sink. I've got some friends who are just like crack fiends for the new releases. It doesn't, I'm grinding my ass off. Yeah, it's a pain in the ass, and it's like, I get that you know, games are expensive and you've got to monetize them and everything, but if you're making it shitty for your core player base, how long do you think they're gonna stick around? It just seems like a very short-sighted decision. Ooh, they've got the zone, not my zone. Hands off my zone. Right, let's get up here. Oh, are we being shot from behind? No? Okay, thought Sora. Oh, no, we're being shot from the side. Yeah, cunning. I'm not going to survive this, am I? No, I've got like 30 seconds to repair or whatever, and they're plinking away at me. Someone shoot him. No. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, watch some Jim Sterling videos. No. Is that Jimquisition? Am I thinking of the right guy? Yeah, no, I like vaguely familiar with his oeuvre, but can't say I've like watched it in any kind of detail. Why do you recommend? Because I'm always in the market for some, interesting new content creators. Uh, Hello, welcome to my channel. I hope you're enjoying the achromatic. Uh, I normally do a mix of like news and politics kind of commentary stuff and like science stuff and occasionally just playing games. War Thunder, I don't play that often. I say that, I've never played it on stream before, but, and I think I'm about to die. Um, but who knows, maybe it'll be a more frequent thing in the future. I'm definitely about to die. Yeah, about to die. Can't find my gun. Um, ah. Can I replenish crew? More crew. Come on. I can't move. Oh, is that a functional shot? God damn. Well, my tank's taking a lot of shots. No, my gunner. Am I? Ah, this is. Let's see if I can play as a. Can I play as a plane? Okay, my gun's back. We were just shooting each other doing... Yeah, my tank was very tanky and so was his, so we just kind of sat there repeatedly shooting each other. Now, see, air combat games I am always terrible at, but I quite enjoy. Oh, can I pull up, pull up? Pulling 9 Gs in a little Spitfire or whatever the hell this is. Beastie. Let's see if I can cross that. Yeah, I do a little aileron roll. Right, I've got to get my crosshair here, little cursor lined up with the spot in front of the airplane, and he's shooting at me. Ooh, critical speed. Okay, well, that's not very nice of him. Oh, what happened there? Alright, I'm back in my tank. Okay, I'll just accept that. Ooh, come on, I saw you first. Okay, well, there's the shot that done killed me. Yeah, I thought it hit the underside. That makes sense. So you can press a number key at any point, and it'll switch you out to an aerial vehicle. Let's go back to try the ship gameplay, because I'm a bit more au fait with the ships. I seem to be doing better with tanks than I am with ships at the moment, though I think that's because I'm quite new to the tanks. I'm still okay, sure, whatever. I get like put into more games that are mostly bots with the tanks, so I get lots of kills, but just like killing lots of bots, which is fine. But I think later on you get daily gambling rewards. How exciting, right? Is one thing that's quite fortunate about having like an education in psychology. Not that I'm an expert by any means, but um, is the fact that it makes it much easier to spot those kind of tricks being used. Um, and yeah, it is just, although like the daily gambling rewards are um, hardly a subtle one that requires graduate level education or anything to. Oh, okay, right. I switched back to Great Britain, then I've got to switch to fleet. Okay, sure, whatever. Some British Navy. Yes, what hot. Let's go to battle. Sail the seven seas. Just right, yes. Right, let's put in some. What did I do? 30. Just adding things into my diary of sugar and insulin. Right. Ah, there we go. That was a relatively short wait. It's often quite long. Although I suppose I'm often playing it later in the night. Right. I think I'm sort of alright at gunnery on this. I'm not very good at like manoeuvring yet. But it's gradually getting there. I'm shooting for a destroyer because I want a nice chonky ship. At the moment it's all like PT boat, like missile boats and stuff. That's a good question. So the game seems to be set any time between like World War II and end of the Cold War, maybe, or it's sort of simultaneously set all those times. I think that so there's a like more realistic mode where I think there's more like restriction on who can be on the same team and whatnot. But by default on this like arcadey mode, it is kind of you're just matched with vehicles of roughly the same era. So I've got to make some ranging shots to try to work out the range. Although this one's just coming in hot, so I might need to just direct fire at this. So my buddies have spotted them. I'm going to blow some smoke and turn away, because otherwise I'm going to just get destroyed. Okay, make a ranging shot, and then I just get to try to spread fire onto them. And they're injuring me a bit. Try to lead it a bit more. Oh no, I'm about to crash. I'm about to crash, yeah. Okay. So I got some hits. Let's just loose a bunch of torpedoes, and probably didn't do very much there, but what the hell. And let's shoot at this thing. There we go. Right. And let's go in for this smoke a bit. I am way off there. There we go. There we go. So yeah, you can play some World War II ships and some like Cold War vessels and whatnot. And this one is gonna fuck me up if I don't start. This isn't great. Artillery fire. And I'm taking on a bit of water. Oh, and I'm pushing my buddy out of the way, but that's fine. Let's maybe do a bit of a U-turn and hope for the best. Then fire off a couple of torpedoes just for the hell of it. And apparently, oh, I've just gotten knocked over by a wave. Ah, bugger. Okay, well, took a couple of people out. I just read this Wired article you highlighted as well as the abstract of your work regarding brainjacking. Oh, cool. Yeah, it's. I like to think that people are going to take me a bit more seriously now that Neuralink has been demonstrated. But I'm glad you found it interesting, and thank you. And yeah, thanks. The first two, for those who don't know, the first two works I cited in my brainjacking paper were William Gibson's Neuromancer and Shirao Masamune's Ghost in the Shell. Ooh, am I getting hit? No, that's just shooting at aircraft. My cannon automatically doing shots. Right, so I've got a like slower semi-auto cannon and then a big chunky full auto one. What impact do you think about Elon Musk's push for Neuralink? So uh, I think as lots of people have said, it's not like fundamentally super new technology. The interesting thing is more the prospect of, it going into the mainstream. And I think the... Sorry, this isn't... I should... I'm not very good at concentrating on two things at once, but I will try. So I think the like short-term impact of it is going to be a lot of people talking about cyberpunk stuff and fretting about these things. The longer-term impact is very much dependent on like how successful and how kind of marketable his product ends up being, because it's one thing to produce a cool but ultimately fairly conventional medical implant that is capable of modulating, um, cortical structures for treating epilepsy, something like that. And it's another thing entirely to be producing a like consumer accessible equivalent. Do you think there's impact is fast forwarding Neuralink technology to the point that security software is unable to keep up? That's a good question. At the moment, it's more a case of there isn't kind of generic software for this stuff. There kind of is. So there's generic software in the terms of there needs to be security on the smartphone or whatever the Neuralink is attached to. But then there's also the security on the device. Oh, well, that already blew up. Security on the device, which currently there aren't many designs for, because it's all has to be sort of specific systems designed for that individual device. So really the important thing is to ensure that the development of Neuralink is done alongside the development of good security systems for Neuralink, and also they need to be really goddamn careful about sticking it attached to smartphones, because those things are full of security risks, or security holes, and I'm very much concerned about the prospect of just attaching one's brain to the average consumer smartphone and hoping that there isn't any malware on there, which doesn't seem like a great bet to me. So there's kind of needs to be that bugger. There kind of needs to be those two separate developments, and those are both obviously need to be done by very different teams. One by Neuralink ensuring that they're designing a good product, and another by Android just generally, or Android and Apple just generally improving the security of their devices if they are to be relied upon for critical medical applications, which they already are. I mean, show me a doctor who doesn't have an iPhone, most of whom have some kind of apps that are verdict.com. Oh, interesting. If you wouldn't mind linking that to me, I will check that out later, because I'm always cool. I'm always, in the market for interesting articles that are relevant to my field. Um, cool. I shall check that out when I'm not shooting Nazis or whoever whoever I'm shooting here. I'm not sure who the bad guys are, but oh, I won. I'm gonna apparently can't control my plane as I smash into the ground. Okay, here we go. See, so I don't say anything can be hacked, so when Neuralink announced that it's pursuing human trials for its brain-machine interface, its security was always going to fall into scrutiny. Yep, yep, yep. Um, been around since mid 2000s. I mean, the definition of brain-machine interface is always a tricky one. Um, some form of like direct interface with the central nervous system has been around for quite a while. Um, since the I mean, with if we're talking specifically about electrical stimulation, I think the earliest ones that were implanting at all like go back to the they did it in 1910s with humans, and certainly like chronically implanted ones go back to the like 50s, 60s, I think 60s. Anyway, point is that the tech in its most embryonic form has been around for quite a while. But things like BrainGate have been around, yeah, since mid 2000s. And BrainGate is often used as the comparison for for this. Um, yeah, be controlled by iPhone app. Uh, so yep, absolutely. Bluetooth is concerning. Um, app copying, app spoofing is a big worry. Um, so currently, the way it's done with deep brain stimulation implants, because some of these implants do connect up to smartphones. Um, they currently like ship with a usually like an iPod Touch, that doesn't have a 3G connection. It's just got the Wi-Fi connection, and it comes pre-installed with the app for your device, and then you're not meant to the patient is told not to install other stuff on there, which is sensible, but it's also unrealistic if part of the convenience of this whole thing is going to be, the app goes on your smartphone. And I say this as someone with a life critical app, my glucose monitor on my smartphone, and it's a smartphone that I'm reasonably security conscious. I do a bit of security research, so it would be embarrassing if I weren't. But it's my everyday use smartphone, and I do install, apps off the Google Play Store or whatever it's called. Um, so it's a real concern. And yeah, reading this now, yeah, Dick Cheney's. I, if I were Dick Cheney, I'd certainly have the wireless systems on my LVAD or ICD disabled so that hackers couldn't kill me. It's a plot that comes up in Homeland, the TV show. Um, and interestingly, Homeland's instantiation of it, how they show it, is less. It is unrealistic, not because it shows it shows it as being easier than it is in real life, but it makes it seem more difficult than it is in real life in order to um, give a reason for the one of the characters to like infiltrate somewhere. Uh, it's one of the few examples of TV shows making a hack seem like more complex than it actually is. Um, to talk about Android getting more secure, um, is there a role in that for third-party software? Um, I I'm not an expert on like app side security, but currently there doesn't seem to be a lot on the market. Excuse me. However, going forward, I wouldn't be surprised if we do start seeing more like antivirus for your phone kind of systems, especially for I mean, it's a bit of a difficult one because a lot of the companies developing this kind of stuff end up just getting snaffled up by Apple or Google, um, rather than putting out more like third-party software. Um, it's continuous belief of EMP attacks disabling biotechnology as more and more people have biotech. Yep. Um, yeah, I think it's absolutely a legitimate risk, and specifically, as you say, legitimate like national security risk. If these kind of implants are very widespread, then being able to alter the behavior of a politician, a business leader, negotiator, whatever, could be extremely valuable to like nation state and kind of comparable level actors. So you probably want to have pretty fucking good security on the device in the president's brain, um, especially if we get to the stage where they're like ubiquitous and basically every politician has one because it expands their memory and lets them sleep less and whatever. Um, then we're in a world where the value of a hack, a zero-day exploit of the most common type of brain implant would be massive. And um, it's yeah, it's concerning, and I don't think there's a high likelihood this is going to happen in the near future. But it's one of those things that I think we should be like seriously considering. Um, look, feel free to drop me a message sometime if you'd like to have more of a chat, or you'd be welcome to like pop on stream sometime or whatever. Because I have been taking a bit of an interest in national security stuff more recently, and I think it's an aspect of the brainjacking work that like I touched upon in my initial paper, but could really do with some expansion. So I'd be interested to hear some thoughts and whatnot. Um, right. I think I think I might bugger off now because I have some bio crap I need to do. Um, but I'm going to do my best to be back on for sorry, Wednesday. It's Monday today. Yes. Sorry about missing Friday. Like I said earlier, my health has just been shitty recently, and there's lots of yeah. Anyway, don't need to ruminate on that. The important point is, thank you everyone for watching. I very much appreciate you all doing so, and particular thanks to newbies for being you and sticking around and hopefully enjoying my stuff, and to repeat viewers for coming back and apparently enjoying my stuff for some reason. Um, which I'm not going to complain about. If you enjoy my stuff, I'll try to keep making it. So yeah, thanks very much. Have a assuming a future government has the ability to hack biotechnology and counter-government groups all exist. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Like there's so many of these kind of scenarios that are potentially just really worrying. Um, but yeah, feel free to message me on Twitter is maybe the best place. I don't know, Twitter or oh, thanks for the follow. Uh, on my Discord, I have a Discord now. Thanks to Crockett for getting that set up. Wait, no, sorry, it wasn't Chinchilla. Um, shit. Anyway, yeah. Point is, thank you everyone for watching and whatnot, and I'm going to go. So yeah, happy Wednesday, ta-ta, and thank you for being here. Bye. clicked the wrong button.